Thank you very much, Ambassador Amakost, for your introduction, and I appreciate your nice compliments. Mr. Schoenstein, Ambassador Amakost, Professor Shin, distinguished guests. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to meet you all here at Stanford University, where brilliant minds interact and collaborate to lead your country and lead the world. I'm particularly excited to be here because Stanford University holds a very special place in the history of the Republic of Korea and in my own heart. This afternoon, I visited the Thurman Engineering Center to celebrate the memory of the late Professor Fred Thurman. To you, Professor Thurman is probably known as the father of Silicon Valley, but to us in Korea, he is someone to whom we will be forever grateful for the role he played in developing our industry, nurturing science and technology, and creating KAIST, Korea's foremost institute for science and technology. I remember that my father, as President of Korea, spent a great deal of his time thinking about how he could build a brighter future for the country. At that time, Korea was a country that had been devastated by 36 years of cruel colonial rule, national division, and the Korean War that left the country in ruin. With no resources, no money, no technology, and a people weary from poverty, the top priority of Korea's leaders was to put the country back on its own 2 feet. My father determined that the only way for Korea to rise again was for it to pursue export-oriented industrialization as a national goal, and that a solid foundation of science and technology would be needed in order for this to happen. And with that, a goal was set, and off we went. And in my own way of contributing to my father's efforts, I chose to study electronics engineering as my college major. Back then, our per capita GDP was only $300. But we had boldly resolved to establish a specialized graduate school that would focus solely on nurturing talented scientists and engineers. The problem then was how. It was at this point that we turned to Professor Thurman at Stanford University for his advice. During the 5 years from 1970 to 1975, Professor Thurman visited Korea on 5 different occasions and selflessly provided us with his assistance and expertise. As I mentioned, I chose to study electronics engineering at school, so I heard quite a lot about the many great things that Professor Thurman had been doing in the US, and was also very interested in what he was doing for Korea. Professor Thurman's counsel eventually led to the creation of KAIST, the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, which has since become a breeding ground for top-level science and technology talent. In 1975, the Republic of Korea presented Professor Thurman a medal in appreciation of his contribution to the development of science and technology in Korea. Today, I would like to once again express my deepest gratitude for all that the late Professor Thurman did for Korea, and I would also like to thank Stanford University for all the support you provided so that such a distinguished professor could come to help a country in need. The seeds that were first sown back then have since grown into trees bearing the fruit of cell phones, LCDs, and semiconductors that are now sought after throughout the world. Korea's shipbuilding industry currently has a 50% share in the global market, and Korea is now 5th in the world in terms of automobile production. In less than 2 decades, Korea went through a miraculous transformation. Yes, the hard work of the Korean people played a big role in this development, but I know very well that none of this would have been possible without the support of the United States and Stanford University in particular. I hope that Stanford University will continue to engage broadly in in-depth academic cooperation with the universities and research centers of Korea. Together, I hope that we can work towards the further development not just of our two countries, but all of mankind. Developments in science, technology continue to bring the countries of the world closer together. The IT revolution that started in the Silicon Valley has enabled people throughout the world to keep connected through a single handset, and even the stock prices of the world seem to fluctuate in sync with one another. In all areas, we are witnessing greater interdependence and more organic connections. In this connected world, issues that arise in one corner of the world can no longer be isolated within a country or a region's boundaries. U.S. issues no longer just concerns the U.S. Middle East issues no longer just concern Iran or Israel. And Korean Peninsula issues no longer just concern the two Koreas. These are all our issues that we have to resolve together. This is true for the current global economic crisis and for the North Korean nuclear issue. Let me first turn to North Korea's nuclear issue. 30 months have passed since North Korea provocatively pushed through with its nuclear test in 2006. Just this last April, despite concern expressed throughout the international community, North Korea went ahead and launched a long-range missile. The UN Security Council issued a chairman's statement condemning the launch, and North Korea responded by promptly declaring that it would quit the six-party talks. North Korea also recently expelled IAEA inspectors who had been overseeing the disablement of the North Korea's nuclear facilities and started reprocessing its spent fuel rods. The ramifications of this issue are not confined to the Korean Peninsula. The North's actions constitute a clear threat to the stability of Northeast and to peace in the world. I hold the opinion that there should be no nuclear weapons whatsoever on the Korean Peninsula. The North's nuclear program must be completely eliminated, and under no circumstances should we recognize North Korea as a nuclear state. The complete elimination of the North Korean nuclear program is the prerequisite for any possible establishment of a lasting peace regime on the Korean Peninsula, and will be the cornerstone for global peace. Many policies and various efforts have been applied in attempts to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. Unfortunately, none has been very successful. Over the past 15 years, a clear pattern, however, has emerged. North Korea creates a crisis. We negotiate and end up rewarding them for their behavior. The North creates another crisis, and we talk and reward them again. When negotiations break down, we can accurately predict that the U.S. will blame North Korea for not keeping its promise, while the North will condemn the U.S. for not keeping its word. Every time, it's the same story. It is now high time that we break this vicious circle. For this to happen, we need to look back and think about what went wrong and take a comprehensive look at what we now need to do. I believe that before the new U.S. administration establishes its North Korean policy, it needs to take some time for an interim evaluation of the previous policies. Only when you know exactly what was wrong and what was right about the past solutions can you expect to develop a new solution that is more realistic. Back in 1994, the Geneva Agreement was reached as a solution to the first North Korean nuclear crisis, which involved nuclear development in Yongbyon. In 2003, the six-party talks were launched in response to the second North Korean nuclear crisis, which focused on the North HEU program. This mechanism did lead to some positive effects in terms of providing a framework for the resolution of this issue. But still, the situation deteriorated, and North Korea went on to conduct a conduct? Not conduct. To conduct. To conduct, right? A nuclear test. North Korea's threats toward the South have also gone one step further, as they now threaten to turn South Korea into ashes, whereas they used to just say that they would turn Seoul into an inferno. Since the launch of the six-party talks, these separate agreements were made, one in September 2005, another in February 2007, and the last in October 2007. Each time we kept our fingers crossed with the hope that finally the North Korean nuclear issue will be resolved, but were ultimately disappointed. North Korea's brinkmanship always seemed to worsen the situation, and in the midst of the confusion, North Korea simply gains more time to take one step closer to its goal of becoming a nuclear state. What should we do? Frankly, there does not seem to be an easy way out. How can we work to peacefully break this vicious circle that we have locked ourselves into? This is the question that we are all tasked with, Korea, the US, and the world, both you and me. One thing that I'm sure of is that we cannot let ourselves repeat the patterns of the past, and we simply cannot allow any nuclear weapons on the Korean Peninsula. Many discussions are currently underway on this issue. Some say that we shouldn't just wait for North Korea to come back to the table, but hold five-party talks to resolve any differences between the remaining five parties and discuss measures toward the elimination of North Korea's nuclear program. Some say that if North Korea wants direct talks with the U.S. should oblige on the condition that the North eliminates its nuclear program and make room for a possible breakthrough. Some say that we should just completely ignore the North. Each approach has its merits, but right now, all of the solution lies in the hands of North Korea. Ultimately, I believe that we will need a more comprehensive initiative that breaks out of the mold of existing mechanisms. You may recall that some time ago, the U.S. came forth with the Perry process, which had bipartisan support and consent. We now need something that goes beyond bipartisan agreement, a framework that can pull together the U.S., China, the two Koreas, Russia, Japan, and all concerned nations into a process that builds agreement on a common Northeast Asian peace policy. We would not just deal with the North Korean nuclear issue, but broaden our scope and focus to establish peace in Northeast Asia. We would develop a multilateral security process that supports the goal of building a lasting regime of peace in the region, and the North Korean nuclear issue would be dealt within the context of that process. Some says a non-aggression agreement between North Korea and the U.S. could be helpful, but I believe that it would be much more preferable to create an environment that can truly foster lasting peace. For many years, I have believed that we need to break out of the existing structure of ad hoc meetings and create a more effective framework in the form of a permanent Northeast Asian body for peace and cooperation. We could strengthen our cooperation and broaden exchange to form an economic community that could develop into a security community. And then I believe that we could step beyond passive peacemaking, where we resolve issues such as the North Korean nuclear issue as they arise, and instead engage in active peace building as we seek to ensure that peace and prosperity reigns throughout Northeast Asia. There would be no losers, but only winners in this Northeast Asian peace process, for I believe that it would create new value for everyone involved. I am aware of the international efforts being led by former Secretary Schultz and former Secretary Perry to create a nuclear-free world. I understand that President Obama has also called for a nuclear-free world as part of his vision for the United States. Korea is most likely your strongest ally on this vision. Since 1991, while promoting the peaceful use of nuclear power, we have very firmly stood by our non-nuclear policy that opposes the development and possession of nuclear weapons. I believe that the vision of a nuclear-free world must start with a denuclearized Korean peninsula. I sincerely hope that President Obama's vision is realized first in North Korea. And if we join forces, I'm confident that we can make this happen. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past half century, Korea and the U.S. have worked together to reach a common dream. We want to build a world of freedom, safety, and abundance, a world in which, with hard work, everyone can realize their goals. It was for this very dream that we fought together in the Korean War, in Vietnam, and in Iraq. Unfortunately, however, the past several years were not so helpful to our relationship. There were many worries and several perplexing incidents. But for me, our relationship can be summed up very succinctly. There really is nothing more to say. We fought together in fight for freedom. Ours is an alliance forged in blood. What's important now is that we upgrade and transform this alliance so that together we can serve all mankind. I believe that our alliance should shift from an alliance that preserves existing values to an alliance that creates new value. New value means that the alliance between the two nations finds solutions to the challenges that are presented before Korea, the U.S., and the world at large. We are facing many challenges. The concept of security now encompasses military threats, economic crisis, environmental degradation, political and social chaos, and various other dangers. In this era of globalization, security is no longer manageable at the national level. Only through global cooperation will we be able to keep our people secure. In searching for solutions to global issues such as the global financial crisis, the North Korean nuclear issue, peace on the Korean Peninsula, international terrorism, climate change, and socio-economic disparities, Korea and the U.S. could create new value for our long-lasting alliance. I believe that when our alliance embraces the vision of becoming an alliance for all mankind, and when it reaches out beyond the political and military stability on the Korean Peninsula and seeks new value in bringing about peace and prosperity throughout Northeast Asia, then it will become a truly attractive alliance that is fully supported and welcomed by our neighbors and by countries throughout the world. I truly hope that we will be able to build this attractive alliance together. The economy is another area that we must work on together. The global economy is currently experiencing the worst crisis since the Second World War. This crisis is not respecting any national borders, and no country can hope of escaping unscathed by itself. This crisis has shown us that we really all do share a common fate. I believe that now is the time for Korea, the U.S., and the countries of the world to pool our wisdom and our strength, to think deeply about how we can better prepare ourselves and cooperate to overcome this crisis, and particularly think about what the future of capitalism should look like as we search for the path to greater prosperity. I see three challenges to the global economy. In the private sector, the challenge is greed. The fixation on maximizing profits led to the neglect of responsibilities and ignorance towards the common good. Governments face the challenge of insufficient and inadequate governance. They fail to keep up with changes in the market and fail to care for their people in need. And the world faces the challenges of protectionism. If we all bolt our doors closed, no one will ever see the light again. Unfortunately, there have been signs of countries blaming other countries, with protectionism rearing its head through the crack created by the crisis. These are bringing upon our world the challenge of undisciplined capitalism. To rise above this crisis and to continue on the path toward sustained development, we need to establish some discipline at a very fundamental level. Capitalism has at its foundation the value of responsibility. Hence, capitalism can only be sustained when this core value is respected. Once the concept of responsibility is weakened, then capitalism itself is at risk. And this is what we may have briefly forgotten. To establish disciplined capitalism, each economic player must change the orientation of their thoughts. We need to build consensus among all the economic players that genuine growth and sustainable profits can be attained only when individual gains and the common good converge. The practice of maintaining excessive leverage and the undiscerning transaction of derivatives are examples of greed, where the highest value is placed on attaining higher yields. Unless we can keep this moral hazard in check, the markets are bound to fail again. We need to ensure that the interests of shareholders and other stakeholders are balanced, as we urge businesses to strengthen their ethical conduct. Second, the role and the functions of the government should be defined anew. This crisis came about from a mismatch between the market and its overseers. Governments must ensure that there are no blind spots in their oversight of the market. I'm not calling for governments to intervene in every aspect of our economic life, but governments must definitely strengthen their role of preventing any issues from becoming greater problems in the market economy. I also believe that governments need to embrace a wide spectrum of perspectives in terms of monitoring and supervising the financial sector. At the same time, government needs to take good care of the more vulnerable groups in society. This should not be simple charity. I believe that each individual should receive support so that they can utilize their own talents to participate in generating GDP. For the final goal of economic development should always be to ensure that everyone, including the vulnerable, participates in building a community where happiness is shared by all. And third, globally, we need to build a new system for cooperation. No country can survive alone in this globalized era. Our keywords are survive together and prosper together. So now we need to step forward and work to eliminate poverty and dissolve the socio-economic disparity that exists in our world. To this end, we need to ensure the free flow of goods and capital across borders, and also work to expand our exchange in human resources, technology, and information. In this regard, we also need to deepen and strengthen the system for economic cooperation between Korea and the US. The FTA is of course important here, but we also need to establish more substantial systems of cooperation that could focus on specific segments of the local economy. This time of crisis is painful for us all, but throughout history, the human race has resiliently risen above such pain to take a big step forward. I hope that by taking the warnings of this current crisis to heart, the world is able to establish a truly disciplined capitalism. Then I'm sure that the global economy will be stronger and the people will be happier. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States was once called the first new nation in the context of the 18th century European civilization. In the context of the Western civilization of the 20th century, Korea is one of the post-war new nations. The U.S. was a success story as the original new nation, and now Korea is here as a success story among the post-war new nations. The U.S. is a truly great country, not because of your economic or military strength, but because of the dream that you instill in the hearts of everybody around the world. The dream of freedom and the American dream that with hard work, anyone can succeed in life. Every country has its trials and tribulations, but as we watched you elect President Obama as your president, the world saw once again that the American dream was still very much alive. The path that Korea must take is also a path towards shared dreams. 50 years ago, all the difficulties faced by third world countries were manifested in Korea. Under such dire conditions, the Korean people took the American values of freedom and democracy as a foundation for growth. With unfaltering courage, unwavering confidence, and devotion to the community, we managed to build a country that is now an industrialized democracy that is leading the digital era. Korea has shown the third world countries of the world that anything is possible. This Korean development model is a success story for third world modernization that Korea and the US could present before the world as a vision for further growth. I hope that together, Korea and the United States can be a source of hopeful dreams for the people of the world. I have a dream too. I dream of a Republic of Korea where all the people are happy. And I dream of a Republic of Korea that helps the people of the world to be happy. I truly hope that Korea and the US can contribute to building happier lives for all mankind. In the past century, Korea was a battlefield for many wars between major powers. Japan, China, and Russia competed fearlessly to increase their presence in Korea, and the country was ravaged by wars waged between them. The 21st century is the era of the Asia-Pacific, and Korea must not be used as a launching pad for attacks against each other, but instead should become a hub for peace, where the countries of the Asia-Pacific engage in peaceful cooperation for peaceful coexistence. For this to actually happen, there is a lot of work that we must do together, and I'm confident that we can do this together. I sincerely hope that history will forever remember Korea and the US as close partners who opened new horizons for peace and prosperity throughout the world. Once again, I thank everyone at Stanford University so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very thoughtful speech this evening. We're going to have some Q&A for about 30-40 minutes. Let me say a few things. You can, since we have a translator, you can answer your question either in Korean or English, but no Chinese or Japanese. Okay? And in doing so, please identify yourself briefly and then make your question very brief. It's not time for lecture or sermon. Just ask your question briefly. And then please wait for microphone. Our staff has a microphone, so please talk to a microphone. So now Dr. Park So-hyun, who is a postdoctoral fellow at our center, will be translating for Madam Park. So the floor is open. Anyone start? Okay, go
Hi, Madam Park. My name is Janine Zakaria. I'm a Knight Fellow here at Stanford. I'm a journalist here for the Year Just Studying. Could you please be more specific about how you would like to see President Obama approach the North Korean nuclear issue? What differences do you want him to implement from President Bush's policy?
오바마 행정부
여기다가 다 들으시기.
말씀하시겠어요?
Translate the other Korean can
예. 우선 그 오바마 행정부에서는 부시 행정부 때와 어떻게 달리 한반도 정책을 달리 했으면 원하시는지 구체적으로 좀 생각을 해보신 지 있으신지요?
지금 오바마 행정부는 제가 보기에 또 제가 생각하기에 이 문제를 어떻게 해결할 것인가 하는 데 대해서 깊이 생각을 하고 있는 중이 아닌가, 무슨 어떤 대안을 탁 내놓기보다 그런 생각입니다. 그래서 제 생각에는 이제 제가 뭐 정확하게는 아니지만 이 문제를 과거와 똑같은 방식으로 가서는 안 된다는 그런 말씀을 드렸습니다. 맨날 그 위기가 생기면 또 대화하다가 보상하고 그 다음에 또 위기가 생기면 또 대화하고 보상하고 이런 식으로 하는 동안에 북한은 계속 이렇게 핵무기를 발전시켜 오고 이런 식으로 가서는 안 되기 때문에 과거에 해왔던 거에 대해서 어떤 점은 취할 점이 있고 이것은 절대로 우리가 반복해서는 안 된다 하는 걸 잘 검토를 해서 이제 대안을 만들게 되기를 바랍니다.
In my view, the Obama administration is carefully reviewing its policy toward North Korea. And as I mentioned earlier in my talk, what I would advise is that we, the U.S. and Korea, do not repeat the past, the pattern of North Korea provoking a crisis and then pursuing talks and asking for compensation. And in the meantime, North Korea is buying time to develop its nuclear weapons. So we have to, as I mentioned earlier, figure out what was right and what was wrong in the past process and come up with a solution for the long term.
그 목적은 세 가지가 분명하다고 봅니다. 첫째는 이 한반도에 핵이 절대로 있어서는 안 된다는 원칙, 이거는 흔들릴 수 없는 원칙이라고 생각하고요. 또 지금 말씀드린 것 같은 이런 그 악순환이 절대로 반복돼서는 안 된다. 이제는 끊어야 된다는 원칙이 분명해야 된다고 봅니다. 세 번째 우리가 분명히 가질 수 있는 원칙은 그렇게 함으로써 결국은 북한을 그 책임 있는 국제사회의 일원이 되도록 이렇게 그 말하자면 돕는달까 인도한다고 그럴까 그 세 가지 목적은 분명하다고 생각합니다.
I would like to emphasize three objectives. And the first is the firm policy, the firm principle, which I firmly believe in, is that no nuclear weapons should be allowed on the Korean Peninsula. And the second one is, as I mentioned earlier again, that we have to break the vicious cycle of the crisis, North Korea provoking a crisis, and then talks and asking for more compensation. And thirdly, I think that South Korea and the U.S. have a role to play in guiding, if you will, North Korea into becoming a responsible member of the international community.
잠깐만요. why don't you wait?
Six-party. Oh, I see. Regarding these six-party talks, I just heard the North Korea rejected the UN request to open six-party open. And also, this morning I heard that the news said the Obama administration sent Ambassador Stephen Bosworth. And in this connection, I see U.S. did not send a high-level delegation. Like U.S. sent John Kerry, to the Gaza and Israel case, and the Vice President sent to the Iraq case. In this connection, again, would you, I'm just suggesting, you are very capable and ability lady, I understand. I'm Korean American too. You had also have met Kim Jong-il about 7 years ago. 7 years ago. Would you go visit over there and initiate some ice breaking this high level delegation? Thank you.
저 이렇게 한국말로 하시고 여기
예,
간단히.
그 북한에서 대화 6자회담 대화 재개를 거절한 바 있는데 박근혜 대표님 같은 그 능력 있는 분께서 평양을 직접 방문하셔서 어떤 새로운 그 문제의 전환점을 어떻게 새로 극복할 그런 용의는 없으신지.
그거는 제가 개인적으로 뭐 방문하고 해서 뭐 해결할 문제가 아니라고 생각합니다. 또 국가 차원에서 이제 어떤 특별한 임무를 띈 이제 뭐 예를 들면 특사 얘기도 이제 있었는데 그런 이제 제 얘기가 아닙니다. 이거는 이제 일반적으로 어떤 뭐 사람을 보내자 남쪽에서 또 이렇게 하는 얘기가 그동안 있지 않았습니까? 그 문제도 사실은 이게 일방적으로 뭐 누가 공식적으로 각오하는 데서 해결되는 게 아니라 북쪽에서도 그 어떤 정부에서 보내는 어떤 사람을 만나서 정말 이 한반도 문제를 전반적으로 한번 해결하기 위한 대화를 하고 싶다 하는 의지나 의향이 서로 있을 때 이 문제가 얘기가 되는 거지 일방적으로 뭐 누가 가고 그래서 해결될 문제는 아닌 것 같습니다.
In my humble opinion, I don't think my visit alone will actually resolve the North Korean problem. And a unilateral visit by a Korean representative, it doesn't have to be me personally, but any person, a representative of the Korean government, a unilateral visit alone, again, will not solve the problem. When North Korea actually shows a real will to actually engage in talks with South Korea, this is when we're going to see a breakthrough in North-South relations.
Hello. Thanks for the talk. My name is Seungmin Well. I'm a first year PhD student in political science. You emphasize the alliance between the United States and Korea. And I understand that some portion of Korean public has, I would say, quite strong anti-American sentiments toward the beef agreement or U.S.-Korea FTA. And I'd like to hear your opinion on what do you think is the major driving force that creates these sentiments, and as a politician, what do you think should be done to deal with this issue?
최근 한국에 한미 동맹에 대한 우려가 많고 또 국민들 사이에서 반미 감정이 확산된 바가 있는데 특히 세국 협상이나 FTA 무역 그 협상 과정을 봤을 때 대표님께서는 한국의 반미 감정의 유래가 무엇이라고 보시며 그거에 대처할 적절한 방안이 무엇이라고 생각하십니까?
그동안에 이제 아까 그 연설에서도 잠깐 언급을 했지만 좀 불편한 당황스러운 일들이 그동안 쭉 있었습니다. 그러나 그런 때가 있었다고 해도 한미 간에는 정말 혈맹으로서 또 그 가치를 공유한 두 나라가 혈맹으로 쭉 그동안 여러 전쟁에서도 같이 싸웠고 그런 역사를 봐서 이것은 그렇게 쉽게 무너질 수가 없는 거다. 그리고 새 정부가 들어서서는 그것이 좀 많이 치유가 되고 또 우리의 그 동맹 관계가 다시 이렇게 많이 복원되고 있다고 저는 생각을 합니다. 그래서 뭐 반미 감정이나 이런 것은 어느 나라나 똑같이 다 하지 않잖아요. 뭐 자유로운 상황에서 이런 사람도 있고 저런 사람도 있는데 그것이 또 어떤 정부의 정책을 타고서 좀 더 드러나기도 하고 또 그냥 가라앉기도 하고 하는 거지 그것이 어떤 무슨 뿌리 깊은 그런 게 있다고 생각을 안 합니다. 이 소고기 문제는 절대로 반미 감정하고 관계가 있는 것이 아니라고 제가 말씀을 확실하게 드릴 수가 있습니다. 소고기 문제는 물론 그거를 반미 감정으로 조금 이용을 하려고 하는 사람도 있었을지는 몰라요. 그러나 순수한 우리 국민들은 미국하고 전혀 관계가 없이 얼마 전에는 한국 정부가 이거는 안전한 소고기다 이렇게 공식적으로 말을 해놓고 어떤 설명이나 이런 것이 충분하지 않은 상태에서 갑자기 수입을 하겠다 이러니까 먹는 거에 대한 불안감이 생긴 겁니다. 그런 것 때문에 우리는 안전한 걸 먹고 싶다 하는 그런 차원에서 어떤 충분한 설명과 어떤 절차와 과정이 많이 생략된 데에 대해서 그런 일이 일어난 거지 반미 감정하고는 관계가 전혀 없고요. 또 FTA 문제가 또 반미 감정하고 관계가 된다고는 저는 생각하지 않습니다. 이거는 두 나라가 서로 굉장히 이익이 되기 때문에 한 거기 때문에 이게 반미 감정하고는 관계가 없습니다.
As I mentioned earlier in my talk, there have been perplexing aspects of the U.S.-Korea relations in the recent past. But at the same time, the U.S.-Korea alliance was forged in blood. We fought in a war together, and we have shared values that cannot be easily destroyed. And I firmly believe that with the new Lee Myung-bak government, that alliance relations have been on their way to recovery, and in fact have recovered significantly. And it's also important to mention, anti-Americanism is not just a Korean phenomenon. All governments of the world have differences in opinion, and Korea is not an exception. And sometimes this is highlighted through policy differences and policy disagreements, but I don't believe personally that this is a sentiment. Anti-American sentiments are not deeply rooted in Korean society. And referring to the specific issue of the beef imports from the U.S., I don't think that there is a firm connection between the beef problem and anti-American sentiments. There have been some elements within Korean society that have tried to use the beef issue, the beef import issue, towards anti-Americanism or fueling anti-American sentiments. But in general, this was a reaction against the Korean government's lack of transparency in actually reintroducing the import of beef into Korea. And it was more concerned for safety and sanitary or the health of South Korean citizens in general, rather than an anti-American or an expression of anti-Americanism per se. And secondly, also, the FTA issue, I believe, is something that is mutually beneficial to both countries, and again, is not actually related to or correlated to anti-Americanism.
소고기 문제는 소고기 문제는 어떤 다른 나라에서 수입하는 경우에도 그렇게 그 충분한 설명과 절차가 없이 했으면 국민들이 그렇게 불안해했을 거예요. 미국의 문제가 전혀 아닙니다.
And just to add a little bit to the beef import issue, this is something not just involving the U.S. government, but if any country had tried to import beef from another country without properly explaining to its citizens the procedures and safety concerns or eliminating safety concerns, this would have been a problem in any country.
I'd like to ask you about Korea's. I'm Larry Diamond. I'm the director of the Center on Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law here, and thank you very much for coming. I'd like to ask you about Korean democracy, if I may. Since the transition to democracy a little over 20 years ago, each of the first 4 Korean presidents has begun with great popularity, but it has expired more or less quickly. And political scientists have tried to imagine what reforms, additional reforms, might enable Korean democracy to work better. And 2 that I keep hearing are, 1, to make the terms of the National Assembly and the presidency concurrent so that there'll be simultaneous elections, and 2, to have a structure of a presidential term more like the American system, which is becoming more popular around the world, which is a presidential term that can be renewed one time in an election. So possibility of 2 5-year or 4-year terms. I'm wondering if you would favor either or both of those constitutional reforms, or perhaps others.
한국이 민주국가가 된 이후로 지난 4차례 대통령 선거가 있었는데 4번의 경우 4번 다 높은 지지율로 시작하다가 급하락하는 추세를 보여왔습니다. 미국 정치학자들은 이 문제를 심각하게 고민하고 있는데 우선 첫 번째 그거에 대한 제한점으로 2가지를 제시하고 있는데 이거에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시는지 여쭤보겠습니다. 첫 번째는 대통령 선거와 국회의원 선거를 동시에 여는 방법이 있고 두 번째는 요즘 점점 더 인기가 올라가고 있는 좀 더 이제 바람직하다고 생각되고 있는 미국식 대통령제, 즉 재임 가능한 다시 한번 4년제든 5년제든 재임이 가능하게 만드는 이런 제안에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시는지 좀 여쭤보고
지금
싶습니다.
말씀하신 2가지는요, 제가 전에부터 이런 대통령 중임제죠, 미국에서 하듯이 또 국회의원하고 대통령 선거를 일치시키는 거, 이거는 저는 찬성해 왔습니다. 그리고 이 5년 단임제는 우리가 그동안 여러 번 해봤는데, 물론 그때도 그런 제도가 태어난 이유가 있었고, 또 그런 거에 장점도 있었지만, 이제 그거에 대한 그 부작용이 그동안 많이 나타났고, 많은 분들이 이제 공감을 하고 있습니다. 그러니까 이렇게 급변하는 그 시대에서, 예를 들면 행정부가, 대통령이 어떤 중요한 정책을 피려고 할 때 말이 5년이지 사실은 레임덕 기간 빼고 처음 빼고 하면은 별로 그렇게 일을 할 기간이 충분하지 않다. 어떤 중요한 정책을 뿌리내리게 할 때. 그러고는 정권이 바뀌면 또 사람도 다 바뀌고 정책도 다 바뀌고 심지어는 한미 동맹 이거는 변할 수 없는 거라는 것까지도 약간 흔들리는 경우가 있었어요. 그렇기 때문에 4년 중임제로 해서 일을 하고 그것에 국민들이 찬성하면 한 번 더 기회를 줘서 어떤 정책이 뿌리를 내려서 그 나라에 도움이 되게 하는 것이 더 좋지 않겠는가. 또 대통령도 행정부도 더 책임감을 갖고 일할 수 있을 것이다. 이런 생각에서 저는 찬성을 하고 있습니다.
With reference to your first solution of making the presidential and National Assembly elections concurrent, I have long agreed with that view. And secondly, with the renewable term of the presidency, I also agree that the 5-year non-renewable presidency in Korea has reaped several side effects in past recent history. And if you discount the honeymoon period and the lame duck period, even if you say it's 5 years, there's really not much time left for the president and his cabinet to actually pursue a policy. And so even something as solid as the U.S.-Korea alliance has undergone changes in those 5 periods. And so I think that I would agree that this is something that we should consider.
My name is Bonjun Koo. I'm a student from chemistry department. And my question is, you said that there was ongoing this kind of system of North Korea invoking a problem, then South Korea or whatever country kind of compensate as kind of like solution to that. But the problem with that circle was because the North Korean nuclear issue might be kind of peace issue, but at the same time, compensation is more to the humanistic issue of helping the hunger of North Korean people. So if you said that we as like South Korea or like United States wants to bring North Korea as a good member of international arena or society, what other initiation do you think we can bring forth before North Korea making another provocation and ask for compensation?
아까 말씀하시기를 북한 측에서 위기를 일으키고 이제 보상을 바라는 이런 악순환의 고리를 끊어야 한다고 말씀하셨는데 그 핵 위기 같은 경우는 그 한반도의 평화와 관련돼 있다면 보상 문제는 특히나 인도적인 문제가 얽힌 문제지 않습니까? 그러면 아까 말씀하셨듯이 북한을 국제사회 책임 있는 일원으로 이렇게 끌고 가야 한다고 하셨는데 그런 방면에서는 어떤 구체적인 걸 생각하고 계시는지 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
그 보상 문제는 그 인도적 그 지원하고는 좀 다릅니다. 사실은 북한의 경제적인 어려운 상황이나 또 북한의 이런 국민들 이런 것을 볼 때 남한은 물론이고 뭐 미국도 다른 나라도 인도적으로 도와주고 싶죠. 근데 인도적으로 돕는다는 것은 저렇게 핵을 딱 쥐고 있는 한은 한계가 있을 수밖에 없어요. 사실은 인도적인 지원 갖고 북한이 그 경제적으로 살아날 방법은 없다고 봅니다. 옛날에 그 소련이 사실 핵무기나 뭐 미사일이나 이런 게 얼마나 많았습니까? 그런데도 결국은 경제난 때문에 그 소련이 붕괴됐듯이 북한이 저렇게 핵을 갖고 있는 한은 어떤 나라도 그 나라에 투자를 할 수가 없고 그 대한민국도 남쪽에서도 투자를 할래도 저렇게 그 대량 살상 무기를 갖고 있는 북한한테 전면적으로 막 투자를 하면서 경제 교류를 하기가 불가능합니다. 그렇기 때문에 북한이 핵을 쥐고 있으면서 또 UN 안보리의 의결까지도 다 이렇게 위반을 하면서 전 세계하고 자꾸 담을 쌓고 고립이 될수록 그 점점 북한이 원하는 거를 얻지 못할 것이다. 어려워질 것이다. 그러니까는 그 정말 인도적인 지원도 이루어지고 경제도 살고 해서 그쪽의 인민들도 행복하게 살기 위해서는 북한이 핵을 그 포기하는 것이 그 유일한 방법이지 어떤 인도적 지원 갖고 될 일이 아니다. 뭐 불필요하다는 얘기가 아니라요. 그런 생각입니다.
I would like to disagree a little bit that the compensation issue is not purely humanitarian. Yes, South Koreans and Americans want to help North Korea because of poverty and whatnot. But the key to the compensation issue is economic recovery for North Korea, and this is not possible with humanitarian assistance alone. And as long as North Korea holds on to its weapons of mass destruction and its nuclear arsenal or nuclear weapons program, it's impossible for the international community to freely trade or interact economically with them. And also the fact that North Korea is refusing to cooperate with the UN or violating UN principles, it will become furthermore isolated from the international community. So I believe that the key to economic recovery and also the compensation issue, as you mentioned, is for the North Korea to take steps to give up its nuclear weapons.
I'll take two more questions.
대표님의 말씀을 잘 들었습니다. My name is Hillary Izet. I'm Dr. Shin's research assistant.
We talked about this question.
Pressure. Multilateralism in Northeast Asia is something very difficult, and I'm wondering what your opinion is to establish a NATO-like organization to attack the nuclear weapons issue. How much is that predicated on overcoming the historical reconciliation issue that seems almost impossible to overcome at this point?
동북아의 다자주의는 매우 어려운 문제입니다. 박 대표님께서는 북한 핵 문제 해결이나 다른 문제를 해결하기 위해서 한국을 포함한 동북아에서 북유럽 대서양 기구 같은, 그러니까 네이토 같은 그런 비슷한 유사한 기구를 동북아에 설립하는 방법, 그러니까 설립하기 위해서는 무엇이 이루어져야 하며, 그리고 이것이 역사 문제와 얽혔을 때 지금 여러 가지 문제를 봤을 때 한일 간 문제나 역사 문제가 굉장히 지금 어려운 상황인데 그 역사 문제를 해결하지 않고서도 다자주의가 가능하다고 보시는지 답변 부탁드립니다.
뭐 제가 꼭 그 네이토 같은 거라고 말씀드리기보다도 제가 아까 그런 말씀을 드린 것은 어쨌든 이런 악순환을 끊고 어떤 새로운 그 정말 그 이것이 북핵 해결이 실현될 수 있는 방법이라면 뭐든지 우리가 한번 시도해 봐야 되지 않냐 하는 차원에서 말씀을 드린 거고요. 또 불가침 조약 그걸로 종이 한 장 그건 서로 신뢰가 없거나 불신을 하거나 그러면 찢어버리면 그만이에요. 그 종이 한 장은 아무 소용이 없는 겁니다. 그래서 그런 말로 이게 불가침이다, 뭐 불가침 조약이다 이런 것보다도 정말 서로가 신뢰를 쌓아서 그런 종이 조각이 필요 없을 정도의 어떤 환경을 만드는 방법의 하나로서 생각을 한 건지 꼭 그게 네이토 같은 그런 건 아닙니다.
when I brought up the issue of multilateralism or building a multilateral institution in Northeast Asia, what I meant was that we would try, or we would need to try, all possible solutions to deal with and to solve the North Korean issue. And what I meant was not something entirely like NATO. It could, for instance, I'm not arguing that we have to sign a mutual non-aggression treaty like NATO has, because after all, that a treaty is only a piece of paper. What's more important for multilateralism is the building of trust and confidence among participants and member countries.
Okay, last question. Okay.
좋은 연설 잘 들었습니다. My name is Kim Dae-woong from Korea. My question is regarding future of Korea's developmental state model. And people argue that the miraculous growth of Korea during the 60s and 70s or beyond is not something that can be replicated very easily nowadays, mainly because of the industrialization of Korea is almost over and Korea is fully industrialized already. So my question is regarding what Korea's main driving force of economic growth will be in the future, and whether the growth that as Korea achieved during 60s and 70s is going to be possible in the future.
한국은 급속도로 발전한 사례로서 개발국가 모형의 사례라고 많이들 얘기가 되고 있는데 이것은 그런 한국의 60, 70년대 특수 상황에서 발전된 그런 특수 모델인지 미래 한국 경제 발전의 원동력은 무엇이라고 보시며 이 여태까지 이룩한 경제 발전이 이거 되풀이되는 그런 반복될 수도 있다고 보시는지, 그러니까 이런 모형이 다시 한번 재현될 수 있다고 보시는지.
다른 나라에서요?
한국에서요. 한국의 미래에서.
한국에서.
예, 미래.
그 중요한 것은 이 정신이라고 생각합니다. 그러니까 그 산업화 시대에 우리가 힘을 쏟아야 되는 것, 또 우리가 추진해야 되는 정책이 있고, 또 이런 정보화 시대에, 이런 세계화 시대에 우리가 추진해야 되는 뭐 우선순위라든가 정책이 있죠. 그러니까 중요한 것은 70년대, 60년대 한 거를 그대로 한다고 해서 21세기에는 맞지 않는 게 더 많을 겁니다. 중요한 것은 뭐 예를 들면 우리도 할 수 있다. 그래서 자신감을 가지고 또 국민의 예를 들면 창의력이라든가 자발성 또 신명 나도록 이렇게 할 수 있는 환경을 정부가 만든다든가 하여튼 이렇게 우리 스스로 뭔가 새로운 도전에 시대의 도전이나 주변 환경의 도전에 꺾이지 않고 힘을 합해서 이뤄내자. 또 그 시대에 맞는 정책을 가지고 어떤 것이 이 시대에 필요한 건가 이렇게 하는 그 정신이 중요하다고 생각을 합니다.
As miraculous as the Korean developmental model was, I think it would be anachronistic to try and repeat what we did in the 60s and 70s, because after all, that was a policy catered towards the industrializing period, the period of industrialization, whereas now we're faced with an information society and a globalizing world. And so it is my belief that the priorities are different, and also the ways, the policies in order to pursue economic growth are naturally different. And what's important, though, for economic growth is this idea of spirit. And it's important for the government to foster an environment where the Korean people can have this kind of confidence and come up with this and use their creativity and build on this spirit, this can-do spirit, if you will. And so this is what I think is the important factor driving Korean growth.
Okay, I know many of you have more questions, but we're going to have a reception after this one. I think serving nice California wine. So please stay and then say hi and talk to Madam Park. But once again, thank you so much for your... So I hope after you come back later again to this university. Okay, thank you and then enjoy your evening. 감사합니다. 예.